Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're here today in this online session as part of the Relearn program. As you know, at Untitled, we organize a number of programs like this. This one particularly, we are looking at a very exciting market that is upcoming here in Europe, and that is the Italian market. Particularly, we're looking at opportunities in the large-scale PV market. And I just asked who's in the room, and I can see there are a lot of people. Clearly, not only we have people from Italy, from different parts in Europe, such as Norway, Sweden, but we have people as far and wide as Australia. So it is very clear that the Italian market is causing quite a stir, and there is a lot of interest. So in order to learn the most from this session, we have got two super experts in the topic. So first, I'd like to welcome Emilio and ask Emilio, please, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, I am Emilio Sani. I am a lawyer, and I deal with energy from more than 20 years when in Italy started liberalization of energy. I work in the law firm Sani Zangrando, and I am one of the founders of the Association Italia Solare, who support the development of the solar industry and of the renewable sources in Italy. And I am based in Milan.
Excellent, thank you very much, Emilio. So you see here we have a super expert in the topic, and we also have someone who's worked in many different PV markets, large-scale PV markets, and seen them develop. Raul, please, could you introduce yourself? Just make sure you...
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you, Belen. Yeah, I work for Jinko Power, the IPP leg of Jinko Solar. And I've been in the solar sector since 2007. My background is mainly financing. Well, I mean, within Jinko Power, I cover Europe. And in the last years, Spain and Italy have been very, very active and hot in the market. So we will be able to speak a bit more about it in the next minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raul. And it was high time as well, right? Because both Italy and Spain had a really big peak around the 2008, 2009 year, and then it all kind of went quiet. So we are now back and actually building it again. I'd just like to take a minute to also say hi to all of the other people that have joined ever since. We've got people from Peru, people from Australia, a lot of people from Italy, of course, Naples, Rome, Milan. There are people also from Spain, Seville, but it's good to see there are so many people joining. So this is how it's going to go today, okay? Very simple. If you are already familiar with our format, you'll know how it goes. I've seen some familiar names. Hello, Eric, as well. And first, I'm going to ask Emilio to give his presentations. Then I'll ask Raul to give his. And then from then, we'll take your questions, okay? Your questions, you can send them in the Q&A box at the bottom. So Emilio, can I ask you to share your screen, please, and get ready for the presentation? And whilst Emilio gets ready, just to remind you, send those questions, okay? And another reminder, we are recording this session, and we're going to make also the materials available. So don't worry about the materials. Don't worry if you don't see something, you'll have them and you'll be able to check them. So how is it going, Emilio? Perfect. Just make sure you take your microphone off. Perfect, you're ready. Okay, I can see your presentation perfectly, so you can start.
Okay. Thank you very much to everyone. And today we will talk about how to develop a PV plant in Italy in looking at the future, not at the past, and what are the opportunities and what are the key aspects that we have to consider for our development of the project. Just 1 second, that I must switch the okay. So first, why Italy? Among all the places where you may develop a PV project, because Italy is a very high irradiation, obviously, it's in the south of Europe, but also because Italy has a very high market price of energy. In 2018, we had in December an average of 65 euros per megawatt hour. And in September, the average was much higher. So I believe that the market prices that you may find in Italy is very difficult to find in other European regions. So there is for sure field for market-based installations in Italy because of the price of the energies that we have in Italy. Today, we will talk the key topics for the development of a PV plant in Italy and for the development of a business plan about the PV plant in Italy. So first, we will give a review to what are the forecasts of new megawatts according to the governmental planning. Second, we will see why the incentives will not be the key support to the PV plants. The key support to the PV plants will be the market PPA, and we will understand why. Afterward, we will make a short introduction on how the Italian market of the energy works, because it's so important considering that we must rely on market PPA for the revenues of our plant. Finally, we shortly will give a general review to the technical risks to be allocated in the negotiation of these PPAs. And at the end, I will shortly introduce a new instrument that the government is planning, that is a platform in order to make easier the negotiation of the PPA. So first, we have to see what is the way in which the Italian government sees the development of the PV installations in Italy. 1 week ago has been published the plan, the energy climate plan that the government had to prepare according to the EU regulation. About the PV installation, this plan states that now we have around 20 gigawatts of installed power plants. In 2025 is planned to get to around 26,000, and it's planned a very big rush because it's planned to get to 50 gigawatts in 2030. This means that there will be a significant increase of the Italian market in the next 5 years, but a huge development in the subsequent years. And it's clear that to prepare such a rush, it's necessary to move from now. And so we start from the first difficulty, the difficulties that you meet when you want to develop a PV plant in Italy. That is the obtainment of the authorization for the plant. The key problem is the obtainment of the environmental impact assessment, because it takes a long time and there are not clear guidelines that let you to understand whether your area is fit or not for the obtainment. So there is the risk that this procedure is very long. However, now, generally speaking, because there is also competence of the regions, we may say that there is a preferential path, and it is much easier to get the environmental impact assessment if you develop your PV plant in industrial areas or in areas where remediation of the soil for former pollution has been performed in former landfills or in mining or cave areas. All these kind of areas are areas that are not used for agriculture, and that therefore have usually an easier it is easier to get authorization for this kind of projects. So if your project is within these categories, it is likely that your environmental impact assessment will be shorter rather than if your project is in an agricultural area, where the timing, if your project is in an agricultural area, the timing is depending a lot from the region where you are filing the application. And so it's difficult now to give you a general forecast for the duration of the procedure of authorization. In any case, if you want to develop your project in Italy, my general suggestion is to make these 3 checks. First, to check that the area of which you are purchasing the availability does not have environmental liens and restriction. Second, I suggest that you check what is the average duration of the environmental impact assessment procedure for the energy project in such a region, because it's very different from region to region. And so you may have a sense also to select the region where you know that the procedures are shorter. Finally, most of the regions issue periodically some regional guidelines with their plans about the installation of power plants. So I suggest that before starting to develop the project, you check the consistency of your project with the last proposal that has been issued in such a region for the guidelines for the installation of PV plants. If you make this preliminary check of these 3 aspects, you may start to develop your project in a, I believe, in an appropriate way, because you know the key information. Now, I pass through, I guess that the problem of authorization is now overpassed, because you have a project that is good for the obtainment of the authorization, and now you must solve the problem: what will be the revenues of my plant? And first, anyone guess, are there incentives that may give us the certainty to have certain revenues for 20 years? Unfortunately, the answer is, generally speaking, no, because in Italy, the plants in agricultural areas are not entitled to have incentives. So you may get incentives for 20 years only if your plant is in an industrial area or in areas that are not classed as agricultural, because what is key is not whether or not farming is going on, but whether in the urbanistic classification the land is classed as E, agricultural, or not. So if the land is classed as E, you cannot get the incentives. If the plant is classed as D or F, that means industrial or public services, you can get incentives, and the incentives will be awarded through a tender. Now the decree for the incentive is under finalization, and there will be a baseline price initial proposal was 70 euros per megawatt hour. On such baseline price, in the tender, there is the possibility to offer a reduction up to 70%. But it's not sure that the baseline will be effectively 70 because there are discussions ongoing. Finally, if you get the incentive, the incentives that will be paid to you will be equal to the tariff that is awarded to you in the tender, less the zonal price of the energy. And if the market price of the energy will exceed the incentive tariff, you will have to reimburse the balance to the Italian government, to GSE, that is the body of the Italian government that pays the incentive. So, considering that most part of the PV plants will be developed in agricultural areas, what are the solutions for the PV plants in agricultural areas? The solution will be or the market, because we have seen that the spot market in Italy is quite good, or if we want a bankable project, we will need power purchase agreements by which our production is traded for a medium-long term, because this allows some way a forecast of the cash flow of the plant. The duration of now we are at the very beginning of the market of the PPAs in Italy. But we had some first PPAs that have been signed. And the duration of PPAs is strictly related to the size of the portfolio. So, if you have a big portfolio, it will be easier for you to have a long duration of your PPA, whilst if you have a small portfolio, usually it is easier to get agreements for 3-5 years rather than for 7-10 years. Now, it's clear that the goal of the PPA, as I mentioned before, is to secure your cash flow. So, the mechanism of the price in Italy, but as wherever in the world, are either a floor price, with market price as reference, and if the price goes below a certain amount, you are safe because it is ensured to you at least a floor price, or simply a fixed price, or, and this is very frequent, the number 3 option, mechanisms that share the upwards or downwards in respect of certain thresholds. So this means if the energy goes beyond 65, 50% is to the trader, 50% is for the producer. If the energy goes below 40, the loss at the same time is shared between the trader and the producer. It's just an example, it's not referred to something real, but this is a kind of mechanism to secure the cash flow that is interesting. And finally, also there are agreements that are not effectively for the sale of the energy, but that are just put option open for a certain period that ensure to the producer that if the wholesale price is below a certain price, they have a put option to sell at a fixed price certain quantities of energy. And this is like an insurance that may secure the cash flow of the plant. Many times, all these mechanisms are combined between them, and so it's not necessarily chosen one, but one may be mixed with the other. So when you negotiate these PPAs, first you negotiate obviously the mechanism of the price. And we have seen in the former slide that these mechanisms are very complex, and so this is something that is the key aspect of the negotiation of the PPA. But we will see afterward that is also very important to take into consideration that the market price is not influenced just by the price of the energy in itself, but also from two ancillary components in Italy that are the cost of transportation and the unbalancing fees. So the allocation of this risk is an important aspect that has to be negotiated in the PPAs, and afterward we will talk in detail of both two ancillary costs that have to be taken into consideration in the PPA. Now we switch to the biggest fear for the trader and for the producer. The risk that, notwithstanding the contractual agreement, at a certain time the producer switches to another supplier or the buyer stops to take over the energy. So usually there are mechanisms of securitization in order to avoid that this kind of switch occurs in breach of the agreement. Finally, another item that is very important in the discussion of a PPA is that the forecast production, that does not mean just the quantity of energy produced, but means also the load curve of such energy, the time in which the energy is produced, effectively corresponds to the production of the plant. Because the trader makes its back-to-back agreement, and not only quantity, but also time predictability of the time of production is a key element. And also the quantity, and indeed in the PPA agreement, one of the key clauses is the clause in which the trader commits the producer to have good maintenance of the plant, because it's key for the trader that the plant produces the energy that the plant has to produce. Finally, there is the inflation risk, but this is something not specific for the energy, but general. Now, I want just to focus very shortly on the mechanism of the market price of energy in Italy. In Italy, we have 6 wholesale zones, and North Central, South Central, South, Sicily, and Sardinia. Consumption is focused a lot in the north of Italy, 40% of the consumption. So this is very important because it's clear that the production must follow some way the consumption of energy. And
Emilio, just want to advise you, you have 5 more minutes or so, just to let you know, okay? All right.
Okay. And the sale, the energy is sold in the wholesale market at a price that is the zonal price, that is the price specific for such zone. But when you purchase the energy in the pool, if you are an industry or a factory or a trader that purchase the energy in the pool, you don't purchase the energy at the zonal price, but you purchase the energy at the national price, that is the average of all the zonal prices weighted, taking into consideration the quantity of consumption in each zone. So, also due to this difference in the wholesale market between the acquisition and the sale of energy, there is an adjustment that has to be taken into account. And so the trader, when dispatches the energy that he has purchased, will have to pay to the manager of the market an amount that is equal to the balance between the zonal price and the national price. So, if in your zone the zonal price is higher than the national price, the trader will have a revenue. If the zonal price is lower than the national price, this will be a cost to be taken into account. So it is very important to manage the allocation of your PV plant, taking into consideration the fee for the transportation. And when you plan the new infrastructure, you should take into consideration the need to diversify the installation in the different zones because of this, on one side, opportunity, on the other side, risk that is given by the payment of the transportation fee. Now, there is not a big difference in the zonal price of the different zones, but it is clear that if lots of plants will be built in the same areas, this can change. Other element that has to be taken into account is the balancing fees. So if you send a program with the forecast production and afterward your production is different, you must pay something like a fine to the manager of the grid. And this fine is paid by the trader, but many times in the PPA agreement, there is a back-to-back to the client. And anyway, this is object of negotiation in all the PPAs agreement. Finally, we have the guarantees of origin. Guarantees of origin is something different from the energy. So in your PPAs, they will have a separate price from the energy. And in your PPA, you may also decide not to include the guarantees of origin and to trade them separately. If you don't sell to the trader the guarantees of origin of your plant, the trader will not be entitled to declare that such energy is from renewable source unless you purchase from another part the guarantees of origin. And in the future, I believe that guarantees of origin will contribute much more than now to the revenues of the plants. Because for the plants with incentives, maybe that in the future will not be any more issued due to the new regulation of European Union. Finally, another opportunity that you may have is if you install a storage system to participate not only to the market where energy is traded, but also to the market where are traded the services to the manager of the grid. This is another market, and you can participate to this market as producer also through an operator different from your trader. Finally, the platform for the incentive is an idea of the new government, and it's not yet clear how it will be designed, but the idea is to allow to small, medium enterprises to have access to PPA through forms that are drafted from the Italian regulatory authority, and so are relatively safe, and to make easier some way the meeting of offer and demand through an organized market that is available also for small and medium enterprises. Okay, thank you a lot for having been part of this short introduction to the Italian market, and I am available to answer to any question you may have. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Emilio. That was great. Can I just ask you to stop sharing your screen at the top so that I can ask Raul to share his? And we do have some questions, so don't worry. Okay, Raul, if you can unmute your microphone and then just share the presentation with us. We have received some questions. Emilio, you can feel free to take a look there and perhaps start answering some of them. But we're going to have time a little bit, at least 10 minutes thereafter. Okay, Raul?
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, can you make that large for us? Because we can still see your PDF around.
Sure, sure.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Well, first of all, Emilio, thank you for that presentation. It was a very good presentation. Thanks for sharing. And we definitely, we definitely see Italy as a country with a lot of potential, and your presentation has been very useful. I would like to add, just a few points to Emilio's presentation, and then I would like to give you a very brief on our company, what we do, because we really think that there may be synergies here. And we would like to take the opportunity of this webinar to share with you what we do. So I'm going to skip the order of my slides, yeah. But please, any questions, I would like to tell you to stop me, but maybe it's better if we keep them to the end of the conversation, yeah. So PPA market, right? So PPA market is something new for all of us. For those of us like Emilio that has been in this sector since many years ago. Obviously, the market is changing very rapidly. The market is changing because a lot of different factors are coming together. And we can see in this slide, right, how the corporate PPA has evolved, right? So meaning 0.1 gigawatts in year 2008, and today the global cumulative corporate PPAs add to 10.6 gigawatts, right? Europe is also growing, not as fast as the US, for instance, but it's also a region where many companies have appetite, and definitely we see the trend following the US trend, right? In Europe as of today, Sweden and Norway are the countries where more corporate PPAs have been signed, mainly because of the wind energy that is quite significantly there, right? Italy, like Emilio was sharing, right? Photovoltaic as of today means close to 20 gigawatts, and the Italian government targets are quite high. If we look into what today means the solar photovoltaic market in Italy, is still, is below 10%. Below 10% of total capacity is 9%. So that means that with the decarbonization, the gap, the room to fill with solar PV PPAs is huge, right? And I don't think that we realize how big this gap is, right? If we look into this graph here, we can see that the thermal power is declining, right? So we can speak about the second era of the renewables, and we can see clearly in the thermal graph that in the last 4 years the production has been declining, right? Contrary to the photovoltaic and to the wind, right? Where we see again the trend going up, taking off again, right? And one more slide that I would like to share is like Emilio was also talking about the different PPAs that we are seeing in the market today, which majority of them are financial versus physical. Probably much more easier as of today and straightforward hedging instrument that the companies are sharing. Although sleeve PPA, where we we involve here not only a large industrial, but also we involve here one of the traditional utilities to make things easier and quicker in terms of closing PPA agreements. So if I move now into Jinko Power as such, right? Who we are, what we do, and why we're here, right? So Jinko Power is probably one of the largest IPP globally, mainly as of today investing in solar photovoltaic, although we have no restriction, no limitations, and we can also look into other technologies as an IPP. Jinko Power is the sister company of Jinko Solar. Jinko Solar is one of the largest solar photovoltaic manufacturing companies with a global capacity of 8 gigawatts per year. And we, although sister companies, we don't have to, to use always the modules. As a matter of fact, we look for the most competitive price, but we tend to use Jinko Solar modules as we get very good service from our sister company, right? In terms of numbers, right? Well, I mean, just to highlight some points here, right? So we were awarded with the largest project in Abu Dhabi, right? 1.2 gigawatts. That project is today under construction, and we expect to have it connected this year. That was a significant achievement. We operate more than 300 power plants globally. We have a pipeline of above 10 gigawatts worldwide. Yeah, so that can only tell us how big we are and where we want to get, right? So we have to say that the company has been very, very active in China, and that's a good thing that I can share here. China has been a massive market in the last years, and the company has been trying to internationalize the brand with a footprint globally, increasing it clearly in South America, increasing it in the EMEA region, where we have been growing very much in Middle East, increasing as well in the Asia Pacific. But for us, Europe, that is the region that I represent, we have a lot to do, and we hope to be able to, with the help of local partners, be able to grow very much in this region. As of today, we are building in Europe one large site in Spain. We have also a decent pipeline in Spain, and are looking very closely into Italy, country that we think is going to be, with France and Portugal, the key countries within Europe. I go back. In terms of international IPP credentials, well, I would not like to bother you with these figures. All we want to share is that we have a team with a lot of track record, over 40 billion US dollar in project financing worldwide, and so on and so on. I mean, figures that you can take a look into them later on, and I don't think that we need to spend this time in this slide, right? Here as well, financing achievements that we have done in the past years, which again, just let us share with you, what we believe we're doing very good, and the idea is to continue doing so in Italy also, right? Business lines that we have, well, development, O&M, EPC, financing. I would like to put the focus in development, which is my area, and I would really like to stress before closing that what we are trying to achieve here is try to find a right partner, a right local partner, because we don't see any other way of making our business grow without a right partner, a partner that is committed to us, committed to the project, a partner that we can trust, a partner that shares the same passion that we share, that has the same vision, a partner that has experience that is also very important for us, and that's it. Belén, that is my presentation. I hope that everyone has enjoyed it, and wanted to thank you everyone, and now I remain also open for any question that people may have.
Thank you very much, Raul. You might take off your presentation from the screen now so that we can see you large and big.
Right.
Okay, so as we've heard on the side of all of Emilio's, all of the how it works, the ins and outs and the inner workings of developing a project. We also know that Ginkgo Powers develop projects everywhere, and that they're currently looking at the Italian market and able to support the efforts there. Let us see what the questions are like. I know that you guys have been already answering some of the questions, but let me ask some of the questions live. Actually, Emilio, maybe we can start with you. You've been answering some of the questions. So what are people asking that you've already answered more or less? Can you give us a little bit of a summary, and then we can start from there? We cannot hear you at present.
I can go through quickly to the questions already answered and to the ones that I have not answered. So I answer directly speaking. So first question was whether are expected feed-in tariffs for the PV plants in the short future, and currently this is not expected due to the level of the market in Italy, due to the guidelines for environmental aid of the European Union. I don't believe that this will occur shortly. Second question is it was told me whether in certain regions in the south is difficult to obtain the authorization, and it's also requested who issues the authorization. The authorizations are issued at a regional level, and so the key entity, the key bodies that you have to check is the region. And as I told before, now I don't want to talk about specific regions, but what I suggest is that you look at the guidelines for the energies that are issued for from the single region. So reading it, you will understand whether such a region wants to develop new PV plants or you risk to lose your time. Another question was what I mean for trader. Trader is the balancing responsible parties, the parties that purchases the energy that is produced by the plant and sells such energy to the pool or to other traders or to the customer. Another question was to give more details about the predictive forecast of climate generation. Now, in Italy, we have the day-ahead market. So the day-ahead, any plant must file a plan of the production of the following day. And if such plan is not correct, there is the risk to pay a fine, because if your mistake makes more serious the general unbalancing of the market, you pay a fine. If your mistake involuntary but helps to adjust the market, you get a revenue. In any case, if your mistake is voluntary, you pay a fine.
Okay.
And other question was if it is realistic, the target for 2030. This is a target of European Union, and obviously is based on the assumptions that the cost for the PV plants and for the storage will decrease in the next years.
There is a question here actually that I'm interested to bring to your attention. It says, can you give a price range in euros megawatt hour for existing PPAs, just to have an idea of what the level is like?
So it depends a lot from the duration, because now we have a price that is around 62 euros per megawatt hour at the spot market. So this means that if I have an agreement for 1 year, I will have a price, also a fixed price that is very close to the spot market price. If I have 5 years duration PPA, I will have a decrease of such price, but it's possible that I will be around 50. If I want 10 years agreements, it's less than 50, no? Because it's a problem of allocation of the risk. So it's very depending also from the quality of the client, the size of the portfolio. There are lots of different items that may affect this kind of evaluation. But what I may say generally is start is the market price, and now we are over 60. As much as is longer the agreement, as much as this price will be reduced.
Thank you very much. Let's pass on to another question. There is another question here that says, Raul, what kind of partner are you looking for? And are you interested in O&M partnerships? Hang on. Partnerships for monitoring, commissioning, and controlling of PV plants.
Thank you, Belen. We are looking to co-invest, to co-develop large-scale solar PV plants in Italy. So we're looking for engineers, EPC contractors, any size that would be keen, to to invest with us, to share some risk with us. Obviously, we are happy to bear majority of the risk, but our ultimate goal is to obtain in the medium term a significant pipeline portfolio of operational megawatts in Italy. We are looking into projects that are at the moment under development to make sure that we can get in under different structure of partnership and bring that specific project into a commercial operational date. Thank you.
So just so that we understand, what can you add to a project? What are you looking to add, and what are you looking for the local partner to do?
Well, we believe that the local partner is key because the local contacts are always locally. In order to fast track any projects, always when you rely on qualified local people, you get to obtain the different the different milestones that a project needs to achieve at a much earlier stage. We have capacity to back up bank guarantees, any bonds that a project requires. We are here to invest and stay. We are an IPP. We are not here to invest and then sell the project once we achieve commercial operational date. And that is a key message that we would like to share with everyone, because the ultimate goal of our company is to invest and sit on the asset that where we invest on the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so there is a question here. There is several actually. There is about storage and about the fact that whether storage is in any way, shape, or form preferred, encouraged. Either of you would like to take that question? This is particular to Italy, of course. As in batteries.
Okay. No, what I may say is that unless for the PV plants, it's unlikely that there will be incentives. On the other side, for storage systems, I believe that I don't know whether this year or next year there will be incentives. I don't know whether there will be tax incentives or other kind, but it's very likely that for storage systems there will be some sort of support. Sure.
Okay, so we don't know. That is the actual response. Someone says makes a comment here. It says the problem I see in Italy is to find the finance, the money. I would like to have reactions from both of you because obviously, Emilio, you're seeing the market from inside, and obviously, Raul, you're looking to invest. So I'd like to hear from both of you. You want to start?
That's a very good point. Thank you. Indeed, I mean, we see not only in Italy, in majority of the markets, we see that there are a number of developers, more qualified, less qualified, with an asset where an asset below them, right? So they may have a project, and they may have some cash restrictions. So I mean, that is the perfect example where we can start conversations, because we are looking for those projects. We're looking for those people that might need some help to monetize the project that they have in their hands, and we believe that it can be a perfect match. So to this colleague that have raised that questions, more than happy to have a separate call. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, what about you, Emilio? What's your point with this thing with the financing? Do you see it easy, doable, or complicated?
The problem with the financing is the fact that we do not have incentives or public instruments to support. So financing is based usually on certain cash flow, and in Italy, certain cash flow is given just by the PPA. So when PPA will be a strong instrument and will have a wide diffusion, I'm sure that banks will follow, and it will be easy to finance PPA in Italy. Now we are at the startup phase, and this is the matter.
Thank you very much. Okay, just a couple more questions. So one is for Raul. He says the size requirements that you're looking for projects, to partner.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this question follows on the question that Emilio was answering, right? So the size of PV, the price, the capital expenditure that projects face in PV has declined significantly in the last decade. If we look back on the early days, the cost of 1 megawatt was average more or less 7 million of installed capacity. Today, the cost of 1 megawatt, one installed megawatt, is below 1 million euro, right? So that means that when it comes to project finance a project, and we all wants to project finance projects because of different reasons, right? We need volume. And the cost of implementing project financing is very expensive. So we need to look into large projects, right? We need to look into 40 megawatts, 50 megawatts minimum, right? It doesn't need to be one project that always help, but we will need to look into a portfolio of at least 50 megawatts, I would say.
Excellent. Okay, so we have literally 1 minute. So I'd just like to ask one question that I saw here, and that is whether there is any priority given to the grid for solar and wind projects. Is this the case?
Sorry, Belén, can you
whether
repeat?
there is priority given to access the grid for wind and and PV projects?
That's a technical question. Probably.
Yeah, maybe Emilio knows. It's one of these things, right? When you have priority to the grid, it's easier to... Emilio, is there priority to the grid for renewables in Italy?
Yes, sorry, I was answering to the questions and
I know, we're all doing the same thing. I'm also, it's complicated.
I was trying to answer to all the requests. Yes, in Italy today, there is a priority for the dispatch of the renewable energy. Things will change as in all Europe due to the EU directive on energy market, but I am quite confident that for a source like photovoltaic plants that do not need any kind of fuel, this will be an issue that may be overcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, so here's how it went. We learned a lot about Italy today, from two leaders and experts here. So we have their email address, you have the presentation, we have the recording. We'll send all of this to you. If you need to be put in touch with either of them, you only have to contact myself or my colleague Araceli, who you must know from the emails. And last but not least, I'd like to thank our speakers today for their time and for sharing with us what they know. Thank you very much, Emilio. Thank you very much, Raul.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone.
We'll see you next time, okay? I think this is the time for the Italian market to take off. We're really looking forward, and hopefully, we'll see more and more solar there in that market. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Okay, Belén, I finished to answer.
We can send to you the questions, Emilio. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.